The night was a tapestry of restless winds and rolling thunder. Rain lashed against my apartment window, the sound sharp and incessant like nails on glass. It was the kind of night that curled around you, pressing close, daring you to step outside your comfort zone. I'd spent the evening half-heartedly practicing simple card tricks for an upcoming community show. Then, just as I began packing up, the knock came. 3 precise raps. I froze, my pulse quickening. No one ever knocked this late. Not in my building, not in this weather. For a moment, I thought it might be a neighbor needing help. But as I opened the door, no one was there. Instead, a package rested on the threshold, wrapped in dark paper and tied with an iridescent ribbon that shimmered even in the dim hallway light. There was no note, no return address, just my name written in a looping, archaic script that sent a shiver down my spine. I brought the package inside, shutting the door firmly behind me. The storm outside seemed to grow quieter, as though the world itself was holding its breath. With a mix of trepidation and curiosity, I untied the ribbon, unwrapping the paper to reveal a book. The cover was leather-bound, embossed with swirling patterns that caught the light like whispers frozen mid-air. At the center was a title in gold leaf, Mysteria Magica. The words thrummed faintly beneath my fingertips, as though the book itself was alive. The rational part of me said to leave it alone, to shove it back into its wrapping and forget it existed. But another part, the reckless, curious streak that had drawn me to magic in the first place, urged me to open it. The pages were yellowed, the text written in an elegant hand, interspersed with intricate diagrams and strange symbols. The language was archaic, but the instructions for one spell stood out in stark clarity. Reveal the hidden truths. A thrill of fascination mingled with unease. It sounded harmless enough, like a parlor trick. Besides, the book had found its way to me, hadn't it? A magician couldn't ignore a gift like this. I gathered a few simple items the spell required. A candle, a silver coin, and a pinch of salt. My hands trembled slightly as I arranged everything on the small coffee table in the living room. The apartment felt too still, the rain outside fading to a muted murmur. I spoke the incantation aloud, the words rolling awkwardly off my tongue. The air grew heavier, dense with something unnameable. The candle flame flared, casting long, sinuous shadows across the walls. And then, silence. At first, I thought nothing had happened. I exhaled a shaky laugh, feeling foolish for letting my imagination run wild. But as I reached to snuff out the candle, a voice spoke. Soft, distant, and undeniably real. Do you hear me, Alex? I stumbled back, the candle flickering wildly. The shadows on the walls rippled, shifting unnaturally, as though they were alive. My heart pounded as the voice returned, clearer this time. The chain is forged. The trial begins. Before I could react, the shadows stretched toward me, wrapping around my arms and pulling me into a suffocating darkness. When I awoke, the air was icy, tasting faintly of metal. My eyes adjusted slowly to the dim light, revealing a space that seemed both vast and claustrophobic. A courtroom of sorts, yet unlike any I'd ever seen. Pillars of shadow stretched upward into nothingness, their tops lost in a void of swirling gray mist. The floor beneath me was cold and smooth, reflecting faint ripples of light from unseen sources. The eerie quiet was punctuated only by the sound of my own breathing. I tried to move, but chains bound my wrists and ankles. They weren't ordinary chains. They shimmered faintly, their links pulsing like veins carrying dark, liquid light. Panic bubbled in my chest, but I forced it down, taking in my surroundings. A jury box loomed to my left, filled not with people, but ghostly figures. They were translucent, their features blurred, as if sketched hastily and left unfinished. Their gazes burned through me, though they had no eyes. "Alex Morgan." The voice echoed from everywhere and nowhere, deep and resonant. I turned toward its source and froze. At the far end of the chamber sat the judge, or what I assumed was the judge. It was a figure cloaked entirely in black, its face hidden by a veil that seemed to writhe as though alive. In its skeletal hand, it held a gavel that glowed faintly, inscribed with runes that seemed to shift whenever I looked at them. "You stand accused of murder." The words struck me like a physical blow. "What? No, I haven't." "Silence!" the figure boomed, and the chains tightened around my wrists. "The crime has been committed. Your innocence lies within the truth you must uncover." "But I don't understand," I protested, my voice cracking. "I didn't kill anyone." The judge ignored my pleas. "You will face the trials. Succeed, and you may prove your innocence. Fail, and the consequences will be eternal." Before I could question further, the jury began to chant, their voices melding into a low, droning hum. The mist thickened, coiling around me like smoke, and I felt the ground beneath me shift. The courtroom dissolved, leaving me standing on a narrow bridge suspended over an abyss. Strange, distorted landscapes stretched out before me, shifting mazes, mirrored corridors, and paths that disappeared into darkness. The first trial awaited. The bridge beneath my feet seemed alive, its surface rippling as though it were breathing. The mist that had cocooned me moments earlier began to recede, unveiling a surreal expanse of shifting terrain. The paths ahead shimmered like mirages, changing shape each time I blinked. A hallway of mirrors, a corridor of twisting shadows, and a forest where the trees moved like living things. I took a hesitant step forward, the air thick with an unplaceable dread. The judge's voice echoed in my mind. "Your innocence lies within the truth you must uncover." But how could I find truth in a world so distorted? It felt more dream than reality. The moment I stepped off the bridge, the ground beneath me solidified into a tiled floor, its intricate patterns forming and dissolving like clouds. I found myself in the mirrored hallway. The walls stretched infinitely in both directions, their surfaces reflecting not just me, but countless versions of myself, each slightly different. I leaned closer to one mirror, peering into the glass. The version of me inside looked back, but something was off. Its smile was wrong, too wide, too sharp. As I moved back, it tilted its head, still smiling, and began to walk toward the surface of the glass. "Nope," I muttered, stepping away quickly. My footsteps echoed endlessly, and the reflections in the other mirrors began to move, independent of me. The whisper started then, faint and fragmented, like voices carried on a distant wind. "Lies, shadows, find the truth." I clutched the silver coin I'd used in the spell earlier, a faint warmth emanating from it like an anchor in this unreal place. The whispers grew louder, the mirrors vibrating with each word. The images of myself dissolved, replaced by scenes I couldn't remember, but felt deeply connected to. A child crying in a darkened room, a hand reaching out, a book bursting into flames. "Is this me?" I whispered. One mirror stood out, its surface darker than the others. The whispers fell silent as I approached it, my reflection almost indistinguishable against the blackened glass. The moment I touched its cold surface, the world shifted violently. The hallway crumbled, and I fell into a swirling abyss. I landed in a dimly lit chamber, the air heavy and stagnant. At the center stood a single pedestal, atop which rested the spellbook I'd received. It was open, its pages glowing faintly. Surrounding it were figures, their shapes undefined but menacing, like shadows given substance. They moved closer as I approached, their forms flickering and undulating. When I reached for the book, they recoiled, hissing as if burned. I opened the book to a page filled with glowing runes. The text rearranged itself before my eyes, forming words I could understand. Reveal the shadow's face, and you will see what binds you. The shadowy figures stirred, their movements sharp and agitated. One stepped forward, towering over me. As its featureless form bent toward me, I realized its surface reflected faint glimpses of my memories. The spell, the courtroom, the fragments from the mirrors. Summoning all my courage, I held the silver coin aloft. Its light grew brighter, illuminating the shadow. The reflections on its surface froze, forming a single image. The same room where I'd performed the spell. The shadow's voice cut through the silence, hollow and echoing. You hold the key, but do you dare turn it? Before I could answer, the world twisted again. The next trial began in a space of utter disorientation. The ground beneath me was invisible, as though I were standing on air, and the horizon was an endless expanse of swirling light and darkness. Floating in this void were countless doors, each different: wooden, iron, glass, some ornate, others plain. The judge's voice returned, reverberating through the air. Choose the door that leads to truth, but beware, the others conceal deception. I hesitated, the weight of the decision pressing down on me. Each door radiated a faint pull, like a soft whisper calling my name. The silver coin in my hand vibrated faintly, its warmth guiding me to a plain wooden door that seemed unremarkable compared to the others. When I touched its handle, the air around me shifted, and I stepped through. The door led to a labyrinth, its walls made of glass that reflected distorted versions of myself and my surroundings. Each step felt heavier, the air thick and oppressive. Whispers filled the space, growing louder with every turn. Truth lies at the heart, one voice murmured. But do you deserve it? Another hissed. I pushed forward, ignoring the reflections that leered at me, their faces grotesque and mocking. At the labyrinth's center, a pedestal rose from the ground, and atop it sat a crystalline orb. The whispers crescendoed as I approached, urging me forward, yet warning me away. My hand trembled as I reached for the orb. When my fingers made contact, a jolt of energy shot through me. The glass walls around me dissolved, replaced by a swirling montage of memories, familiar yet foreign. I saw the spellbook arriving, the courtroom, the shifting shadows, and something more. A figure, cloaked in shadows, stood at the heart of it all, its hand resting on my shoulder. Its face was hidden, but its presence was undeniable. "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice trembling. The figure turned, its eyes glowing faintly beneath the hood. "I am the truth you refuse to see." The orb shattered in my hands, and I was pulled violently back into the void, the voices echoing in my mind. One trial remains. The void dissolved around me, replaced by a circular chamber of obsidian walls that shimmered with faint, unearthly light. Above, the ceiling stretched into darkness, and below, the floor rippled like liquid glass. A single object occupied the room's center, a massive, ancient mirror. Its frame was wrought from twisted metal, etched with arcane runes that pulsed softly, like a heartbeat. I took a cautious step forward, the sound of my footfall absorbed by the oppressive silence. The mirror's surface was not reflective, but instead appeared as a swirling vortex, its depths alive with faint, shifting forms. The judge's voice filled the chamber, heavy and resonant. "The final trial stands before you, Alex. Gaze into the mirror of truth. Uncover what binds you, and the chains will break." The mirror pulsed, drawing me closer. I hesitated, clutching the silver coin in my hand. Its warmth steadied me, though the unease in my chest grew with each passing second. As I stepped closer, the swirling forms in the mirror sharpened into recognizable images, fragments of my life, replaying like distant memories. I saw myself as a child, fumbling with my first magic trick, my father's encouraging smile. Then, the image shifted to a lonely apartment filled with books and props, my pursuit of magic tinged with a longing for something undefined. The reflections changed again. This time, they showed me holding the cursed spell book, my fingers trembling with both excitement and fear as I spoke the incantation. The moment I finished, shadows coiled around me, pulling me into the nightmare I now inhabited. I wanted to look away, but the mirror held me captive. The next reflection froze me in place. It was the courtroom, but this time, I was not standing in chains. I was seated in the judge's chair, the gavel in my hand, my face obscured by a veil of shadows. "No," I whispered, stepping back. "That's not me." "Is it not?" The judge's voice challenged, its tone colder now. The reflection shifted, and I saw myself handing the spellbook to another, a young woman with wide, curious eyes. She mirrored my actions, speaking the incantation with trembling excitement. Shadows surged toward her, engulfing her as they had me, and the cycle began again. A sick realization settled over me. The spellbook wasn't random. It was sent by me, or the version of me that had become the judge, trapped within this twisted system of trials and chains. "You stand accused of murder," the judge's words echoed in my mind, their meaning now clear. I wasn't being punished for a crime committed in my world, but for binding others to the spell's curse, perpetuating a cycle I hadn't even realized I was part of. "Stop this," I said aloud, my voice cracking. "I didn't know. I didn't mean to." The mirror rippled violently, its surface darkening. My reflection remained, but now it stared back with glowing eyes, a cruel smile spreading across its face. "The chain is forged through choice, Alex," the judge said, its tone heavy with finality. "And only a choice can unbind it." The mirror offered no answers, only my twisted reflection. The silver coin in my hand grew cold, its light dimming, as though urging me to act. I turned to the judge's empty bench, realizing what had to be done. To end the cycle, I needed to break the connection between the spellbook and myself. But could I trust the mirror to reveal the truth? Or would I remain trapped here, another shadow bound to the curse? "Choose wisely," the judge whispered, its voice faint now, as if receding into the void. I looked back at the mirror, its swirling depths once more reflecting the fragments of my life. My reflection, the shadowy version of me, extended its hand, a flicker of pity crossing its expression. "Only one can leave," it said, its voice a hollow echo of my own. I clutched the coin tightly, my mind racing. If I shattered the mirror, would I free myself, or trap everyone who came after me? If I stepped away, would I condemn myself to an eternity of trials, ensuring the cycle's continuation? A memory surfaced then, unbidden, the first spell I ever performed as a child. It was a simple trick, a coin disappearing from one hand only to reappear in the other. My father's laughter rang in my ears, warm and genuine. "The magic isn't in the trick," he had said. "It's in the choice to believe." Taking a deep breath, I released the coin. It fell into the mirror's surface, dissolving into ripples of light. The chains around my wrists and ankles shattered, their fragments vanishing into the ether. The mirror darkened, my reflection fading, until I was left staring at my own pale face. Then the surface cleared entirely, revealing nothing but the chamber beyond. The judge's voice returned, soft and distant. "The choice is made. The chain is broken." The world around me unraveled, light flooding the chamber as the shadows dissolved into nothingness. I awoke in my apartment, the rain tapping gently against the window. The spellbook lay on the coffee table, its pages blank, the cover now dull and lifeless. I reached for it, but as I did, the book crumbled to ash, carried away by an unseen breeze. The oppressive silence of the cursed trials was gone, but the unease lingered. Outside, the storm had passed, leaving the world washed clean. But as I gazed into my reflection in the window, I thought I saw it flicker just for a moment. A shadow of what could have been.